Yay! Mark chapter 3 review. Let's see if I can skim across this. Rolling eyes. All right, so here we go. First, the Bible talks about Jesus coming into a synagogue, and there's a guy who had a shriveled, withered hand. And long story short, Jesus healed him. But it was a Sabbath problem here because not to God, not to Jesus, it was not a problem for them. It was a problem with the leaders, the religious leaders of that day. They tested him and they watched him like a hawk, trying to find something on him to accuse him. And they found some evidence. Well, in their minds, evidence, proof that this guy is not of God because, oh, he's healing on the Sabbath. Super sad. He could have waited one more day and then did it. And they wouldn't have a problem on a Sunday or something. But on that Saturday, Jesus literally did it. And he tested them, if you remember. He had the guy come up, which is a test to the guy probably. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Is it okay to do good or to kill or to give life? And all? Then he said, and he was angry. Mark mentions that he was grieved and angered. So Jesus has emotion. I do too. Do you? You should get angry at stuff that's sinful and evil and all that. But anyway, here we go. So the next one is Pharisees at that point joined forces with their enemies. They didn't even like them. But because they keeping an eye on Jesus, they were keeping an eye on Jesus. They saw that he was becoming a threat. There and Herodians, if you remember, were those. It seems to be there's not a whole lot of information on these guys, but the Herodians were Herod followers. They liked the Herodian dynasty, like the King Herod and different Herods. Different kings, Herod the Great, Herod Antipas, Herod Philip, various ones, Archelaus, and they seemed to kind of like them, and I think they were Jewish, in my opinion, Jewish people who like the government. And that's good to like governments if it's good, but that government wasn't. Anyway, they tended to be followers of, that's why they didn't like them. And yet, because they both didn't like Jesus, they actually started talking together and plotting, guess what? His death. Oh, by the way, my little faces here. Sabbath problem is, wow, look at him heal this guy. Yay. There's two faces there, my little drawings here, my emojis. This one is Pharisees and Herodians. Really sad, super sad. Multitudes healed. This is where mass people, there's a surprise and the happy face, happy time right in here. Jesus went through just like we did, happy and sad and happy and sad and happy and sad. Life. Welcome to life. But with Jesus, it's wonderful to walk with him. And then even in your sadness, Christ can give you joy. It's just amazing. But anyway, multitudes were healed like crazy and delivered. Delivered means demons came out of people, and they knew him. And he strictly charged them. He commanded them not to tell who he was because it wasn't the time for his revelation of who he was. Anyway, Jesus to the mountain. By the way, I like to always think of this when I think about a lot. The devils knew who he was, the demon powers, and the people couldn't even see it. They couldn't even see it. This is the Son of God. Look at this. This is wonderful what he's doing. Mass people, hundreds by thousands of people were getting healed. All right, so very, very powerful. Jesus went to the mountain because God called him towards that, and he prayed. It says in the other Gospels, and he called. There was a calling of his disciples to become the 12 apostles. There were a lot more than 12 at this time, by the way. A lot of people were following him, and all the way from the baptism, by the way. But right here, or a little after the baptism. Anyway, the 12 were those special ones, and I did all these smiling faces, Peter and James and John and Andrew and all that, all the way down until you get to this super sad face. You know who that was? What was the last one on the list? There's 4 lists in the Bible. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Acts of all the 12, but the one that's always on the bottom of the list and least is Judas of Cariot or Iscariot, which is probably a city way down in the Edomia or in Judah, in the bottom of Judah. Probably in Judah. Anyway, the Bible talks about he was so busy, so many crowds and all, and people coming in and out and in and out and in and out. He had no time to eat. And that'll happen if you're busy with God, for God. And even people that are not busy for God, they're like busy and doing work or some, don't even have time to eat. Well, that seemed to be somewhat of his life. You know, so many people, he just said, hey, he could have said, look, back off. I need to get a bite to eat. Leave. See you later. He didn't do that. He just healed, and he kept healing, he kept healing, he kept healing. That's got to tell you that this guy was just not a regular human being, normal guy. Nobody in the history of any history, Old Testament, other histories, other religions, nothing. Nobody did what Jesus did. Just innumerable, can't even count them. And John mentioned that in chapter 21. He actually says you couldn't be able to contain the number of books that would be written if you told every story about every person that he healed. It's just crazy amazing. No time to eat. And so that's when it says those who are of him, his people, which could be his family, maybe friends, said he's beside himself. He's loony. he's just going crazy. And they were, maybe some of that was his brothers, maybe, who were stepbrothers, his jealous of him. There was definitely, I think, a jealousy and envy there. And imagine being a brother of Jesus. Imagine being Mary, the mother of Jesus. And anyway, so he is beside himself, which I just put this kind of face out here. This is like, whoa, no time to eat, surprise. So let's see, where are we here? Oh, down here, officials. Oh, I left out an R. By the way, I saw something the other day that I left out a letter. I happened to watch that video and I went, oh, I left out a letter, but I didn't want to do the whole video. I put scribes. It's scribes, S-C-R. There we go. The teachers of the law at that time, they knew the Bible like crazy. It's kind of sad that these people knew the Bible like crazy, knew the Old Testament like crazy. That's all they had at that time. And yet they didn't recognize Jesus when he's actually mentioned in a hidden form, but it's like he's mentioned all over the place in the Old Testament. But the official scribes from Jerusalem, they heard about all this and they came up and tried to draw this, oh wow, like this, really? There's his face. But they came up, the scribes came from Jerusalem. In other words, word was spreading so much that they heard story after story, and they said, let's go check him out. Let's interrogate him. Let's see, what is this guy? Why is he so popular? And what's he saying? You know, they didn't like him. But anyway, then they came up and said, and by the way, right at that time, just as a reminder, if you didn't know it, in Matthew and Luke, it mentions that Jesus just healed someone from blindness and muteness. He couldn't talk, and that was a demon spirit that was causing that particular affliction. He could see, and the spirit left him. And isn't that interesting? An invisible spirit causing you can't see. I don't know how that works, but it's very possible. I'm not loony. This is what happened. And he couldn't talk. And then Jesus cast the spirit out of that guy, demon, and then he could talk and he could see. And that's when they couldn't deny it. They just thought it was sorcery. They thought it was like evil spirits. And they not only said an evil spirit's doing it, they said, but it's the chief of evil spirits, the prince of demons doing it, the top boss guy of the demons, Beelzebul. Different spellings of Beelzebul. A lot of times I've seen it with just the U. Now it's an O. It doesn't matter, but Beelzebul. That's really sad. You want to roll your eyes. Yeah, right. And that's when Jesus mentioned that, like Satan, how can Satan cast out Satan? Why would he do that? He's an own enemy. And then he mentioned the kingdom divided against itself, a house divided against itself. If you're, it's warfare against your thing, like a civil war, the devil's not going to do that. It wasn't the devil. It was the Spirit of God. And that's when he brings up that blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, saying something to the effect that the Holy Spirit is that devil. Like he's calling the Spirit of God this Satan. I'm not laughing like, oh, this is funny. It's tragic. Super, super, super sad. But it's like, it's laughable. It's like, what? It's not the devil doing it. And they went that far. Super, super sad. Blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is the one sin that God's not going to forgive. If you haven't heard that, go to that one. I'll explain why I think it is. I think it's a pretty good explanation of what I said. Go to that last video, or the video before. Anyway, blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is, he said, is this, and there's this a really surprised face. It's shocking. Don't say anything against the Holy Spirit. Respect the Holy Spirit of God. And then it says his family. Oh, the next story is his family, how they came his family versus God's family is what I said here. And what that was about is that his family, his mother and brothers came, and they were trying to talk to him. Come to us. Come out with us. I think they wanted him to shut this whole thing down. Word was spreading everywhere. Nazareth was like, down lower in the southern part of Galilee, and they heard about it, and so they came up there, and that's when they got there, I think, and he's teaching like crazy. Here he is, busy again, doing God's will. And then so when he looked around on the circle of disciples, followers of his, could be just the 12, could be more than 12 that's actually there, or 11. I don't think Judas made it in there, in that family of God. No, he didn't. But he said, those who do the will of my Father, that's my family. Good stuff. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it. I love talking about this. I hope you love listening to it. Thank you for listening.